Hey folks, we are back at ng-conf. I'm here with Shai Reznik.
Hello.
So we're talking to all the speakers, and you gave your talk yesterday, right?
Yes, me and Pete and Mike.
Yep. So how did that go? I actually missed it. I was taking care of some other stuff.
I'm going. How could you miss it?
Well, I was out in the hallway talking to some people, and I just got this terrible headache, and I had to go lay down.
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah, I think we were talking before about stress, and I think that was part of it, honestly. I was like, I just can't deal. In fact, I wound up going back to my hotel room, and because I live near here, but I got a hotel room. I went to the hotel room and I slept for 5 hours, woke up, got dinner, and then went back to sleep and slept all night. So
because of the jet lag, right?
Yeah, the jet lag's terrible. Driving all the way up from Utah County to Salt Lake County, it's awful.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I'm coming from Israel. It's not that
not that bad.
Not
yeah.
that bad. Yeah. It's,
yeah.
But I hear ya. It's sometimes the stress of all the things you need to do at once gets to you, and believe me, I know it.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a very I think successful talk in terms of education.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the primary goal of this talk. I'm super happy with it. I know that Pete and Mike are also super happy with it, and I will send you a link. Watch it online.
It should be on YouTube soon. So
I actually so it was on YouTube. I asked them to get it off YouTube because I want to edit it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have more footage. I brought like cameras and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So I wanted to add more angles because sometimes, in the conferences, we don't always know how it's going to play out on stage. So
right.
It's always in the last moment. We're going to the camera guys and ask them like, hey, and tell them like, we'll be on this side of the stage or we'll be on that side of the stage. And during the live performance, they improvise. So sometimes they don't know that we're going to come from one side, so they don't catch it. So that's why I had a few friends. I asked Steven Fluent to shoot a video for us, also other friends. And so I'm going to mix those angles, and I hope it will show a more complete, the more complete picture of the thing. So wait for that version and then see it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but it was a very different talk all the way from the initial conversation about this talk and up to even after the talk, process-wise, feeling-wise, even the talk itself. Everything was different, and it's like I don't know how much time we have, but if you want to, I can get into the backstory of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So the talk itself was called "I Switched the Map, and You'll Never Guess What Happened Next," and it was about teaching about switch map, which is the RxJS operator. Which, in our opinion, was the most misunderstood operator and complicated to remember what the hell does it do. And it all started like, I don't know, 1 year ago or 1.5 years ago, where I kept trying to remember what it does. I kept forgetting, like, wait, so if I edit, then because it's hidden inside of the function, so and if you read the source code, it's even confusing you more. So I kept telling myself stories about like Burger King and like the guy in the counter and like gets an order and pass it away, and all these stories to keep remind myself what it does. And So in Angular Connect, I sat down with Pete, and we were talking, and I just, we thought about like, we talked about maybe next year's ideas or something like that. And I told him about this idea I had for a talk where using a sketch, we can teach about RxJS operator.
Right.
So like taking the metaphor and then like it will stick in your mind, right? In your brain, like whenever you think about these operators.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him about the Burger King metaphor or the story, and then he said, "You know what we can do? We can have like balls thrown at people.
Mm-hmm.
They need to catch, or so they can filter only the red ones, and they
Right.
can map it to like other stuff like that." And I said, "Okay, that sounds good." And then I met Mike Brocky.
Mm-hmm.
And told him about the Pete's idea and my original idea, and then Pete's upgrade. And then Mike was like, "Oh, we can call it observables." Okay, so we could have like a whole spectacle,
Right.
like a talk. And then I really liked the name, so we ended up scheduling a talk, a hangout talk, to discuss it, like to plan and to see if we have something good. So we started with the idea of like what we can do with observables, and I remember telling them about like my experience from last year was that like I did a talk called Angular Router Authentication and Authorization Real Live Demo. This was the title. And it was supposed to be about like how the authentication flow works with guards and Angular and stuff like that. Are we good?
Yeah, I'm just making sure it's picking up sound, and it is.
Okay, here it is. Okay, so so I had this talk, which was supposed to teach about the authentication flow and guards in Angular.
Mm-hmm.
But I did two things last year, which was the ng-rep and this talk.
Right.
And the ng-rep took so much time to prepare. And I thought I had a good story there with the real live demo, and I didn't apparently, because I kept getting feedback that it's not clear enough, it's not good enough, it's not funny,
Right.
it's not nothing. So in the last moment, I got this idea of like, okay, let's change the story, let's do something else. And I already got asked the production team to get like a few costumes for the show, but they were supposed to be for the original story. So I ended up with random costumes.
Oh, wow.
Like I needed to somehow create a story that will involve a parrot and a prince and something like that. So it ended up being a super funny talk because of the people. So I had volunteers. I had Pascal Precht and Igor and all the gang improvising on stage. And I played the frustrated director who was like, no, you should do it like this, you should do it like that, like an improv show. But I ended up getting disappointed by the result, because the original aim was to teach, and I felt like it weren't like, it was more confusing to actually get some value out of it, but it was super entertaining. So this year the goal was to teach. First teach, then we'll sprinkle some humor on top of it. So with that in mind, when we talked about like the balls getting thrown, we figured that it's probably will be maybe funny, like an activity of a fair day activity, but it might not be like that, valuable in terms of like what you get out of it, because it's just like marble diagrams, which for me doesn't really make sense. When I try and think about operators, it's just me, there's a lot of people who do get value out of it, but for me, I need somehow tied to the code I'm writing. So we brainstormed about different ideas, and after 4 hours of a hangout talk, we got to this idea that the initial idea for what we did yesterday, which was taking a story about day-to-day story of that anyone can relate to, no matter if you're a developer or not, of a startup CEO who keeps like getting tweets about like new hot JavaScript frameworks and like keep like, oh no, we need to change everything. Okay, now I need backbone developers. Okay, so get me backbone developers. Pick up the phone to call the recruitment agency, and then he's like, oh, Angular is the new hot framework. Okay, he fires that agency and he hired that agency.
Right.
So that was the story roughly. And so the aim was to teach. And the process since that point, first of all, both Pete and Mike were super serious about it, like super committed, and were all in the same level of dedication to make it like a really successful talk. So, so I've been saying that. So both Mike and Pete were super dedicated, like to make it a successful talk, and we're all on the same page of the commitment level. So we ended up like meeting once a week, and then in the last month it was like more like twice or even 3 times a week of a hangout video chat, practicing and like refining the script and going over like the video slides. So I took it. I have video editors that I work with on the Hires IO courses. So I asked them to help us with like preparation for like this talk, and it was 2 weeks of like creating like 70 videos.
Oh wow!
Of like 3 seconds each or something like that as the slides. So all the slides we came up with like I think a very innovative way to show reactive flows on top of the code itself. So we took a story of the startups and of this CEO and the tweets and all that stuff and developers coming in, and we animated on top of the code, so you could see like functions and variables, but the actual values on top of them as images. So you see tweets on top of the like parentheses with like 2 tweets on top of the tweets observable. So one of them is living and jumping and going to that function. So you see the flow on the code itself, which I never saw in a reactive lecture or even like a different lecture. Somebody who's doing this animation on the code itself. Usually it's like marble diagrams or like the live demo.
Right.
You see what the flow, but not on the code itself. So we spent a lot of time making sure that we're preparing these videos, and the best thing about working with Mike and Pete was that we all came from these different perspectives. We all had different ideas or different but in terms of education, in terms of humor, we were sort of on the same page. And even when we didn't agree about what's clear or what's funny, it was done in a very collaborative way and very respectful way, and it was more of like, let's. So if I suggested an idea, so it was like, let's morph it into or let's build on top of that, or let's take what is the core idea behind this idea and maybe try it in a different way. So we always had okay, let's try this option, and whatever felt good for the 3 of us, which is what ended up being in the talk. So it was a very, very fun experience of building something together and not getting into, I don't know, ego wars or all that stuff. So that's the best part I think I had leading up to the talk itself. Also, when we got together, which was 2 days ago, only to actually practice that physically, in a code of conduct way, not physically. We had so much fun and we laughed so much because of the characters that we picked. It was basically like a play inside of a play, because it was all the talk was characters and not me, Pete, and Mike. And the characters themselves told the story, a sketch, which was like we became different characters.
Right.
So all the characters was like super funny characters, like wacky, and yeah. So also we saw that we were pretty good actors in the end of the day. Like all three of us could like take on the role and like really get into it. And I asked them why they are not trying improv, because they really should start acting,
Right.
and not just like coding and teaching. And I hope to see them like do that. So we practiced a lot. We prepared a lot. 1 month of like preparation or something like that. And we started to talk, and like the clicker, whenever we like randomly, whenever we clicked on it, so it was timed like 3 minutes, like because it was live coding in video,
Right.
so you cannot skip a slide. And we use PowerPoint because I have Windows. Sorry about that. And you cannot go back, okay? Because if you go back, it has this bug of when you play forward again, it returns to the first frame in the end of the video.
Oh, okay.
And it needed to be a continuous like play of video, so we couldn't go back. So if we skipped a slide, we just needed to improvise around it,
Right.
and justify like the new slide somehow. Not like, okay, let's stop, let's go back. We didn't have that luxury. So it happened. Like one of the first slides, we're like clicking it, boom, seeing like the next 2 slides, like
oh no.
And we're like looking at each other like, and what do you think about that? And like trying to like maneuver around, the script, because we lost the script because we were counting on the order of things. So it was also another fun thing about it, because we talked about it a lot, that it could happen, and we could like one of us could forget his lines in the middle, or get into like this blackout stage. The fun thing about it was that we all agreed that we all learned each other's parts.
Right.
So we could save each other on stage, and like remind each other like, oh, what do you think that it should,
Right.
be like this, or something like that. And it happened like 4 or 5 times during during the talk, and nobody noticed, because we were like, because we were wacky characters, so you couldn't tell if it's like part of the script or not.
Right. If you're being goofy or just filling in, right?
Yeah. So it happened like 4 or 5 times, but nobody can tell like when. So that's the power of a good collaboration.
Right.
When it's just not just like, let me do my part. It's about the group, and it's very improv mind like, because improv is building on top of these principles, which is like not blocking, accepting the idea, rolling with like unexpected things, and make it into like there's no mistakes, right?
Right.
So that was the experience of the talk. So we had Ben Lesh coming and do like a self-humor bit about like the RxJS docs, and we had Mishko come and play himself when we hire like Angular developers, and he's like one of the developers we hire.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had a lot of like fun things in between, and in the end of the talk, usually I want to know if it's like it was funny, and it was. So this time I really wanted to know if people remember what switch map does.
Right.
That was the main goal of the thing. Like we really when we talked about it, by the way, in that 4 hours initial talk, we raised a concern about like whether like it's enough to just talk about switch map, because it's just like one operator out of 180 operators. But it was the most common one, and the most confusing in terms of the Angular world, because all of the when you teach about it, usually you hear about switch map, or when you do an HTTP request, usually you hear about switch map. So so we talked about it, and then we said that there is enough here to, if you deconstruct it and you build it from the ground up. That's what we
Uh-huh.
did. We built it like line by line, keep adding layers until we had something like the source code of switch map,
Uh-huh.
but done in a very step by step way, and then we could switch all that to one operator.
Right.
So that was the thing. So the most common feedback we're getting is that, thank you, now I know what switch map does,
Right.
which makes us so happy, because we all that hard work, even with all the hiccups and all like the unexpected things, was paid off, because people actually now have a story to tell themselves about what this complicated thing
Right.
is doing. So yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sounds like fun, and I can totally see you guys just having a good time
Yeah.
acting it out.
Yeah. When you see the real thing, like the YouTube, you'll see what I mean about the acting,
Mm-hmm.
and like the goofy characters. Pete was playing like a psychopath nerd, um, psycho nerd who started out like as just a normal, coworker,
Right.
but as the talk progresses, he become more and more psychotic and like want to kill the observable
Oh,
and all
jeez.
that stuff. And Brad Green told me like he was cringing, right? But like as the talk progresses, like looking at Pete, because Pete got into this like, yeah, they killed the observable, and
Uh-huh.
to this character, which was on purpose, right?
Right.
But it was very funny, and like to us, like to play with it and to upgrade like the characters and all that stuff. So we'll see it in the video when we will watch it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I hope people go and check it out. I do need to switch gears just for a second, talk about Kendo UI, because they sponsored the interviews.
Okay.
So, yeah, I really appreciate them, helping cover this.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little bit of new equipment and, some things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
also, they do awesome visual components for Angular apps. So if people are looking for that kind of thing, definitely check it out. I don't know if that connects at all with SwitchMap, but
Maybe. I know that I used one of my clients. They're using Kendo UI for, I think, the tables and,
mm-hmm.
and data grids and stuff. And I know that they are using like async pipes and stuff like that. So probably a lot of switch map gaming
Right.
around there. Right.
There we go.
But yeah, overall, I think they, from what I've seen, like they have a lot of solutions to a lot
Mhm.
of common components that people, especially I think in enterprise or like in big
Yep.
products, need. So thanks, Kendo, for sponsoring my friend here, and buying him a new equipment, which is awesome. I can see it here.
Yeah. Yep. So I also, as part of these interviews, want to just give people a chance to get to know the speakers and
Mhm.
and just stuff like that. So do you want to talk a little bit about yourself personally? You're from Israel,
Mhm.
a lot of people want to know, what your family situation is, or what you spend your time doing when you're not coding.
Okay. Okay, so I'm Shai Reznik, and I'm a husband and a father of one daughter, 2.5 years old. She was actually born 90 years old mentally,
Uh-huh.
because she kept like talking like a 90 years old. I don't know where she gets it. 'Cause, like I had this like I don't know, scratch, and she
Uh-huh.
was like, "Oh, Daddy, are you hurt?" And I said, "No, it's just a scratch. It will be, healed by tomorrow."
Uh-huh.
And she said, "Come here, cutie. Let me give you a kiss. It's okay." And I was like, "What are you, 90? Who talks like that?" So that's my daughter, and yeah, most of the time, I used to do a lot of improv shows, like as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I used to run like an improv line each week and hosting it. And
Right.
I don't do that much improv anymore, because it got to the point where I was doing too many things at once, so I needed to just take a break from everything and just focus. So most of the time I spend my days when I'm not. So I have consulting work, and then I work a lot of the time of the week on hires.io, and mainly now focusing on testing, unit testing,
Mm-hmm.
and researching and talking with, like, interviewing people about their struggles with unit testing, and to make sure that I'm actually solving their problem and not just like producing content, which I don't know if it solves any problem or not.
Right.
So that's what I'm focusing in these terms. I organized the JavaScript Israel meetup group, so I'm involved with that. Although we have a big team of volunteers that are running, the monthly meetups. So I help with more of over watching that, like that everything runs smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
I volunteer a bit, with like different organizations, and yeah, I play some piano. I don't know if dance some salsa.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so not so much anymore, but that's how I met my wife. During salsa, I had like a ponytail, and was one of those people.
Nice. I don't know what one of those people really means.
The one with the ponytails with the salsa.
Okay.
In Israel, it's like one of those people, because we have a lot of those people.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, that's where my my time goes when I'm not with my family. So I completely changed my schedule to have more time with my family, with my daughter, with my wife, meeting friends. I used to work weekends and like over hours, like hours. So I completely changed that, and I'm not touching the computer on weekends and just travel and stuff like that. So that's a little bit about me. Besides the code, that's what I'm focusing on.
Nice. Yeah, and you got a little bit of a reputation for doing the goofy talks, so.
Yeah, I try to do stuff that I would enjoy if I were in the audience.
Right.
Because I have a short attention span, so I need something to get me, to watch the stage or to watch the presentation.
Right.
Before I lose, before I go to my phone or something like that. So I always try to think about that. So and I try to do something that will make it fun for me also to perform, because I know if I'm having fun, the audience having fun. This is
right.
Again, a rule from improv. If you're having fun, if you're not having fun, it shows, and
right.
Nobody will have fun. So I try to do some stuff that I found funny, but mainly as a tool to get people to get the information.
Right.
So I use it as a tool. But yeah, that's the ng-conf was traditionally I saved my best idea for ng-conf each year. And now I don't do that much conferences because I reduced the amount of events, because I realized that I cannot take a month each month, okay?
Right.
Just for to do another, crazy talk, and so maybe I will start reusing talks, or even not do it, that often. Yeah, so notoriously goofy talks.
Yep.
Speaker. Yeah.
Yep. So one more thing, if people want to see what you are working on these days, or thinking about, maybe on Twitter or on your blog or in your courses, where do they find all that stuff?
All of the above. So I have a blog on Medium, which I just like started like a few months ago. I wrote like 2 posts
Uh
because
huh.
I still getting a hang of it. Um, and I wrote about, I'm writing personal stuff like about procrastination, about
Mm-hmm.
like things I struggle with, perfectionism, all that
Right.
stuff. I try to write stuff that maybe will help other people
Mm-hmm.
if they're going through the same thing. So that's on Medium, just Shai Reznik on Medium. And I have highres.io, which I'm currently is gonna go through a makeover,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be more of like um, focus more on Angular testing. Although I have still a few courses about like free courses about like the basics of Angular and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, which is more entertaining. Again, the same mixture of like very informational, very
Right.
going deep into like the reasons behind the stuff, the why we chose
Mm-hmm.
that, why Angular, why all
Right.
that stuff, but still like goofy and entertaining and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's and Twitter also like I don't have a good Twitter game yet.
Right.
I try like to whenever I remember to update or to send like
Mm-hmm.
something funny that I think of, or but I'm not one of those people who like, hey, I just took a leak, or something like that, or like I just ate a apricot, or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So I need to remember to tweet more. But yeah, that's that that's basically it. If any like anyone who's listening to that right now want to get in touch and like have struggles with not testing his or hers code and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
so you can reach me at chai@highres.io, and I would be happy to learn about your problems and to see how I can fix them if I can. So that's basically it.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Shai.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, everybody go check out his talk.
Yeah. Now.